I've been running this FreeBSD YouTube channel now for about 3 years, and I get asked a lot of questions. Some questions get asked more than others. So here is a video on the 10 questions I get asked a lot. In order to watch Amazon Prime or Netflix on FreeBSD, you need a piece of software which supports the digital rights management standard, for better word. In this case, it's Widevine. It's implemented and managed by Google. They control it, but they won't ship it to FreeBSD. And the digital rights management was agreed to by all the major studios and practically held Netflix and Amazon hostage, saying, if you don't implement a digital rights management, we're not going to let you show our shows or films. And so even though Netflix supports FreeBSD very much, they contribute a large amount of code and also financial aid as well. Netflix, because they want to show films, because they want to show TV series, they're going to abide by this digital rights management. And so unfortunately, unless Google gives out that Widevine to FreeBSD, we won't be able to watch it. I see Google supports what they think are the major operating systems, and therefore in their mind they're reaching the maximum audience and keeping everybody happy. I think there is hope. There are some attempts being made to get things moving, implement Widevine using the Linuxulator or the Linux ABI in FreeBSD. But, it's early days, and, I think a lot of work has yet to be done on that. But never say never. Wi-Fi is always tricky in FreeBSD. For me, no, as I always use Ethernet, and at the times when I do use Wi-Fi, I use the older N specification. But for a lot of users trying FreeBSD on their laptops, 802.11ac support is an issue. Some news did come in on March this year, in 2020. And I'll read it out as it was presented. It says, the good news is that FreeBSD Foundation has announced that they will be sponsoring the 802.11ac work soon. Hopefully that will allow the 802.11ac to be ironed out as soon for BSD, means FreeBSD, and they can begin thinking about the current 802.ax. Not 802.11ax, I've not heard that, which is apparently Wi-Fi 6 standard. It's a new one on me. So time will tell. And in the meantime, you can grab an older Wi-Fi adapter, USB Wi-Fi adapter, or better still plug in an Ethernet cable, and don't let the fact that maybe your 802.11ac isn't working deter you from trying FreeBSD. It's not perfect, and I wish that it did support it out of the box, but that's coming. It won't be long. Like I say, the FreeBSD Foundation is sponsoring it. They'll get the work done. Despite certain similarities between FreeBSD and the Unix underpinnings of macOS, it's not possible to run a command line program in macOS on a FreeBSD box. It's just not how it works. There's different kernels and different APIs, and it's complicated. And as for the graphical environment, well, that's Apple's proprietary code, and they won't be releasing it anytime soon at all. Without the graphical layers, trying to get a Mac application running, you're wasting your time. Cocoa, which provides all the object relationships, GUI widgets and libraries, etc., is not going to make its way to FreeBSD. So there is a very loose relationship between macOS and FreeBSD, but not enough to run any macOS applications on there. Sorry. The most common cause of not being able to get any sound on your desktop or laptop is that the wrong sound output is being selected by default. And to see which has been selected by default, open up a terminal window and type cat/dev/soundstat or sndstat. And the output should look something like what you see on screen. To change the device now, so you can almost like it, you can see it working in real time or change it in real time. With root privileges, type in sysctl or sysctl hardware or hw.snd.default_unit equals, and try and go down the list of what you think is the logical sound output. So, for me, it's never going to be the NVIDIA ones unless I hook up to a HTPC. It might be Realtek, it might say ALC892, one of them. So it'll say rear analog, front analog, or it'll be one of them two. And sometimes with a Realtek ALC887, you may have to issue the command sysctl dev.hdac.0.polling, that's polling equals 1. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. To make the changes permanent, if it works, enter the command into the /exec etc. /syscontrol.conf, and I'll put that on the screen. If after this still no sound, check your headphones, because you'd be surprised how many people don't plug them in, and check that the sound levels, so maybe it's not muted. So in a terminal, which is a non-root, type in mixer, that's on the screen, and you should see a list. And just make sure that the first two, which is volt and PCM, are not set to 0, and actually they're roughly about 75 to 85. FreeBSD doesn't have a native Steam client. You can get it working under Wine with some varied results. And there is even work being carried out to get it working under the Linux related or the Linux ABI in FreeBSD. I'll show you 2 videos. I'll leave a link to 2 videos in the description box down below, showing you the 2 projects. But natively, no, there isn't a native application, and I doubt there will be, because frankly, the user base is too small, especially those who wish to use FreeBSD on their desktop. So they're not going to release it because it's not commercially viable, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't the case, but that's the way it is. I get asked quite a few times, can I do a video on whichever distro name Linux? Unless the video is a comparison video in some way, like I've done in the past, where I view FreeBSD in terms of something that Linux does better or something worse, then no, I'm afraid I can't or won't. That's not through a dislike of Linux, it's just that I use FreeBSD. And I really have no interest in Linux outside watching the occasional Linux YouTube channel. I use FreeBSD 100% of the time at home, and really, I don't want to be installing or going through the various hundreds of Linux distros. Dual booting, well, dual booting was big in the operating system scene a good few years ago. Hard drive space was expensive, and most people just had the one hard drive in the system. So trying out a new OS either meant wiping your existing OS off the system, or you try to dual boot. And I managed in those days to mess up my system so many times that I became rather jaded at the process, to put it in mild terms. In these days of plenty, I don't advocate dual booting, never mind triple. There's just no point in risking your existing setup. If you really are wanting to have 3 or more OSs on your system, then get some hop swap drive base for your PC or external drives, then boot off them by selecting the option at boot time or from your BIOS or whatever you use. I recently did a video showing how to dual boot Windows 10 and FreeBSD, and that's about as far as I'm willing to torture myself. USB mounting in FreeBSD isn't done automatically out of the box, as in some OSs. GhostBSD will, as well as NomadBSD, I think. And for new users who may have managed to install FreeBSD, then Xorg, followed by their window manager and desktop environment of choice, it comes as something of a disappointment not to have the USB sticks pop up on their desktop when inserted into the machine. That's not a bad thing, as you get a secure OS right there, safe from nefarious devices, until the time comes when you want to plug it in. Then you do it manually. But if auto mounting is your thing, and I will probably do a video on this, but now I will say that you best read a great guide on this, and that's by Vermaden. And he's a chap who knows almost too much about FreeBSD. It's almost not human. He knows a lot, and his guide on how to create a desktop, how to do auto mounting is really second to none. Obviously, I'll leave a link to his blog in the description section down below. And if you do go there, say RoboNuggie sent you. While it's true that FreeBSD hasn't always had the latest GNOME 3 implementation, it's been stuck at 3.28 for a long time. I think now it's actually managed to catch up with all the Linux distros. Kind of. I think they're one version behind now. But the reason why it was behind, well, it comes down to that GNOME 3 is extremely cozy with systemd. And they're starting to merge almost. There's a lot of systemd taking over the functions which perhaps GNOME used to do well. And because FreeBSD is systemd free, it takes time for the port maintainers to detangle GNOME 3 in such a way that it will work in FreeBSD. But, the fact that it's here now, it's one version behind, is a testament to the work by the maintainers. So, excellent. Thank you, guys and girls. Why do I prefer... I do get asked, why do I use FreeBSD? Why do I prefer FreeBSD? And this is an answer which I could either talk for an hour or give you a whole 15-part essay. FreeBSD, there's no agenda behind it. There's no encroaching or technologies of such like systemd allowed in. Development is slow, and on purpose, because I think the very important part is stability. You know, it's there's no point in having an operating system that keeps changing, reinventing itself just because it wants to implement the fashionable technology of the week. It's like, for instance, you know, there are some Linux distributions which they'll say, oh, well, we're using Xorg, or then we're going to be inventing something called Mir. Oh, no, we're not using that, we'll be using Xorg again. No, then we'll be switching to Wayland. And you can't run something like that. And the fact is that Wayland is, I don't think it's ever going to be ready. I don't see the point of it personally. Xorg is just fine. In fact, Wayland until Wayland implements a lot of the functionality missing that you actually find in Xorg, then it's something that I won't be touching. So you get that. You get you get the interference from if it's run by one person, you get interference by that one person on the developers or the people who do the code. So really, it's a very democratic operating system, which I think is also fantastic. I mean, there are one or two. There was one Linux distribution which purports to be democratic, who kind of went towards systemd, even though quite a few of the developers were against it, and well, you know, it's split. I'm not going to mention it by name, but I think you know what it is. So you've got that. So you've got it's democratic. You've got it's systemd free. There's no fashionable technologies to come in. It's relatively slow development pace, which is a godsend. Really, it's really a good thing. It means that you're not going to get all the latest technologies in FreeBSD, but what you will find is you can rely on it 100%. It's got a fantastic community. It's a very tight-knit community. People who use FreeBSD are very passionate about that. I myself am very passionate about it. And there is only one FreeBSD. I know there are derivatives, you know, there's GhostBSD and NomadBSD and FuryBSD, but there's only one FreeBSD. You don't find distributions. So the developers can concentrate on that one part. And indeed, the fact that you separate userland from core OS is another thing which is good, where the developers can concentrate on the core OS. And the userland, well, you know, is maintained by port maintainers. But sometimes if older packages aren't maintained anymore, or you know, if they're not developed further upstream, then they get cut off and left adrift. But that's a natural thing. Technologies do change in the sense that, you know, Python 2.7 is going to be deprecated soon. So some things do move on, and you need to change with that. But change not for change's sake, as some operating systems do. FreeBSD is not commercialized. There is never going to be something like the Amazon search put into FreeBSD, which at the time when on certain operating systems was absolutely, I found to be abhorrent. You know, you shouldn't have that. There have been a lot of apologists over the time, but you shouldn't be in the operating system. the license of FreeBSD. You know, the 2-clause BSD license is about as simple as you can get, and just basically, yeah, you can use FreeBSD, but don't credit the work as your own, and include the license. That's basically it. Which means that for a company can come along, take the operating system, and make their own product out of it without fear of having to give back any company secrets into the code again. Which, you know, the GPL, that's fine. Version 2, not version 3. Version 3 is not really liked. But a lot of companies are kind of hesitant in using that because they don't want to divulge what they've done to their product, you know, to make it. So with BSD, that's why Sony chose that. That's why Netflix uses it. And if it's a good company, they will contribute back to the FreeBSD project, which they do, financially and code-wise, which then in turn improves the FreeBSD projects, which then would benefit them. So I use FreeBSD through the way it's organized, the way that the file system is structured. You get 2 file systems, basically. You get ZFS and you get UFS. Each one has its merits. I perhaps don't use ZFS as much as I should. I tend to sort of like stick with UFS, but, you know, that's fine. Everything is just logically laid out and solid. Now, you know, you'll get people who are passionate about Linux, people who are passionate about Windows maybe, and definitely people who are passionate about the Macs. And each one of them could talk to you until the sun comes up, or the sun goes down, about why their operating system is the best. And there's a certain truth to say that no operating system is the best, and all operating systems have their flaws and weaknesses. And that's fine. FreeBSD has theirs too. But it comes down to what you feel comfortable with. And FreeBSD, for me, it makes sense. You know, I know that if I work on a FreeBSD 12.1 box, that the chances are that a FreeBSD 11 box or a FreeBSD 10 box or even earlier will work the same way. There might be 1 or 2 changes in command structure, you know, like for instance PKG, but essentially it's the same operating system. Whereas I can't say the same for other ones which change and diverge so much that, you know, you go back to a couple of releases earlier and the commands are completely different. So that's it, really. It's a very subjective reasoning, and it's something which, you know, for every argument you can give, someone will have a counter argument, and then that's fine. But yeah, these are the 10 questions. And hopefully I've answered them. I thought I'd do something different for the video today, and I won't be doing this one again. I find it really difficult to do video. I like to edit things and make sure things are just right. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. I just want to give a shout out to a blog by a subscriber of mine, Alistair. And the reason is, he kindly gave me a mention that he used some of my videos to help him install FreeBSD, and it looks like he's done a fantastic job. So, I mean, I'm soon going to be out of a job doing YouTube if he ever decides to open a channel of his own. But I would like to say thank you, Alistair. It's absolutely brilliant, and I recommend that everyone have a check out his blog. The thing is, he don't just do FreeBSD. There's on some retro computing, and he's just generally a clever chap. And like I say, I'm glad that I managed to discover his blog, because there's a lot of articles about some 8-bit computers, which is a passion of mine anyway. Buy him a coffee. It's well deserved. A bit of basic language there from BBC Micro. Very nice. I ain't done that for a long time. So yes, everybody, check out his blog. There are some interesting articles there. Talking about everything from 8-bit computers to shells to acorns, even to Apple Pie OS. So yeah, check him out.